Hi, welcome to the SnydeReport with Gary Snyder. I am your host, Gary Snyder. She is not. She is State Representative Carrie Hamilton. Let's hear it for her.
Okay.
That's pretty nifty, huh?
Always something new.
Always. Well, it's been a few months since we last spoke, but how are things going?
Okay.
You enjoying your summer?
I'm trying to. Lots of family stuff. We're about to take a little vacation, and so
Yeah,
I
where are you
thought,
going? Not to
well,
be nosy, but to be nosy.
well, I'll tell you, it's kind of a big one. My husband's favorite band is Oasis,
Uh,
and we're gonna go across the pond and see them.
Really? My
Yes.
my wife and daughter were in Italy for 2 weeks,
Ooh.
and I tried to get them to go up to Milan to see Bruce Springsteen, but they wouldn't do it. And I hate summer. I hate it. I hate
Oh.
it. I used to love it, but now our air conditioner went out last week
Oh.
for yeah.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah. It's rough now. I mean, it is. It's been the swampiest summer ever.
it was nothing but boxers and bad decisions for about a day and a half. Well, the reason we have you on tonight is because, well, there's a lot of reasons, but we want to focus tonight on the big, bad, ugly bill and the implications that has on Hoosiers. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, because I have been a few times in my life. You combine that with what the state is already doing with its budget, it could almost be catastrophic for some people. Am I too far off?
No, unfortunately, I don't think that's being dramatic at all for a lot of folks.
So, what do you see as a state representative? What do you see are the main implications of this bill on Hoosiers? Because I have I have the idea in my head what's going to be horrible about it, but you might have a different perspective than me because you are down at the state house, you're making decisions, for us common folk.
Okay. Yeah. So, well, first, I just want to mention what kind of blows my mind from the big picture about this bill as really as an American, not just a Hoosier, as an American, is the deficit busting nature of this bill. It is so wildly irresponsible from a spending perspective, fiscally irresponsible. And of course, the main reason is because Trump had to give tax cuts to the wealthiest Americans, right? Like, so this big billionaire handout and creating the largest federal police force we've ever had with ICE. So those two expensive, the tax cuts for wealthy by far being the most expensive, but also a big line item to make ICE be massive, massive at the expense of everybody else, Gary. I mean, I think about just our healthcare system across the board, how it's going to suffer for all Hoosiers because of the massive slash to Medicaid, projected to close 12 hospitals across the state. We already have seen a decline in access to healthcare in rural Indiana. That's going to expand. That puts pressure on the healthcare system in other parts of the state. It's bad news for all Hoosiers who'd like to have access to quality healthcare in their communities.
No, I like doing this podcast. You can kind of see my kitchen table behind me, because what it comes down to is, how do people make decisions at their kitchen table? Do they even do that anymore? Probably not, but it's metaphorically
I
speaking.
love the metaphor. Yeah.
But when you take a look at them cutting taxes for the richest people and giving very little to the people who need it the most, the people that are trying to figure out, am I paying my mortgage this month, or am I going to get my medicine because my Medicaid has been cut? Do I pay my electric bill, or do I go to the grocery store and get food? So how does
Exactly.
that impact? How does the big, bad, ugly bill impact Hoosiers when it comes to making those decisions? And then you throw in what the state did on top of that.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk about that on the healthcare piece state plus this big bad bill. We were finished the legislative session back in April with some cuts to Medicaid. It was going to be harder for people to participate, and our health systems were scrambling already, very worried about keeping some facilities open and being able to maintain services. So we were not in a good position. And even late last year at the end of the Holcomb administration, they had created wait lists for seniors who were eligible for Medicaid and were being told, oops, now you're on a wait list. We had seniors facing the threat of being removed from their senior care facility to a homeless shelter. That was already happening in Indiana, Gary. And we, of course.
Hold on 1 second. So you're telling me that before this big, bad, ugly bill even passed, that we were moving Hoosiers, elderly Hoosiers, which 71% of all nursing home care is provided by Medicaid. We were removing them from nursing homes into homeless shelters in Indiana
And
in 2025.
assisted living. Yes. I know of at least one case of someone actually going to a homeless shelter from an assisted living facility. That's just one example from one provider I spoke with. So an anecdote. I also know, Gary, I have a constituent who passed last fall, and about a month before she passed at the age of 100, family was scrambling because the state was going to kick her out of assisted living that was near her granddaughter, where she had a community that supported her, and they were told they're going to have to kick her out. Now, in this case, they were going to move her to a faraway nursing home. But regardless, her last few days on Earth, or months, they didn't know at the time, were under threat of fear of losing those family connections and a safe place to be, where she knew she was safe. That shouldn't happen to Hoosiers. This is a woman at 100 years old who'd worked her entire life, almost never used any social safety net, really never had until Social Security, and then her final days in assisted living. It's shameful. And that was before this massive cut came down from the federal government, Gary, that we'll see, it's pretty crafty design where not until after the midterm elections
Of course.
will a lot of the pain be felt. Although I will tell you, our healthcare systems are gearing up, and we probably will see some facilities closing over the next 2 years because they know they won't be able to keep their doors open and they're already bleeding. But back to just Hoosiers, and this list of folks that are impacted includes families with disabled children that are receiving services and are on wait lists today. Those wait lists will grow. Just folks that are eligible for Medicaid, and it's going to be harder for them to get that access. So it's predicted well over 200,000 people will lose access. So that's direct loss of access to health care. But we know what that means, right? Those folks still end up at the emergency room. Who pays for that? We do.
Everyone.
The whole system pays for it, right? Someone pays for it. We do. So, but it just makes the system break. So that's what we're in the process of doing. We've got a healthcare system that hasn't been working so great the last couple of years, in particular for Hoosiers, because of cuts that the state has made, Republicans at the state house have made, and now it's going to get a whole lot worse. And frankly, it really scares me for Hoosiers across the state, and especially in rural areas.
I saw a statistic that 4 out of 5 people on the Affordable Care Act pay $10 or less a month. That's gone with this. Am I right?
Yep. So the Affordable Care Act is going to get harder to be a part of. Several other programs that try to fill the gaps are going to be harder to participate in for folks. It's just going to be harder to have health care. And then folks who do have it, it's going to get more expensive. I've got a story. Someone in my family recently went to the ER, walked in on their own out of an abundance of caution, and just the base, and they waited in the waiting room. Clearly it wasn't a super emergency, right? Waited for a while and were taken back. The minimum charge just to be let in before the tests and everything else was $5,000. Just to sit down for a couple of hours, have a couple tests that had another big bill attached to it.
Oh, yeah.
Just to sit in that room. That's crazy. And that's a symptom of a system that's keeps breaking even more. And this is just, the final straw, I think, for a lot of Hoosiers when it comes to having any hope of decent health care. And you asked me, I want to go back to just kind of the kitchen table issues. There's another big piece of this
Can I ask you to hold through a quick break, and then we'll discuss that when we come back?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You're listening to the Snyder Report. I'm Gary Snyder. We'll be right back. All right, this is the part of the Snyder Report where we thank our sponsors, and we have a growing list. So let's start with Robin Winston. Robin has been there when we first sent out our first email, 147 subscribers. We're now over 108,000. So thank you, Robin Winston, and helping us get the podcast going in the right direction. Next up is our good friend, former Congresswoman Jill Long Thompson. Her book, Across the Aisle, Why Bipartisanship Works for America. Get that anywhere you buy your books. Also, former two-term governor, two-term U.S. Senator Evan Bayh. Evan has been a sponsor of the newsletter, now jumps on board with the podcast. Congressman Andre Carson. Congressman Carson has been there from the start. We're glad to have him over here on the newsletter now. He needs your help to win re-election next year, so make sure you support Congressman Carson. Next up, State Representative Cherish Pryor. Cherish has been there from the start on the newsletter, joining us on the podcast now. So is State Senator Greg Taylor. I want to thank Senator Taylor for all of his support through the years. Next, we have a couple of new sponsors. First up is Indiana Citizen. You want to check out their new project, One Heartbeat Away. Do Christian nationalists have an agenda for Indiana? You know, all you have to do is look at the lieutenant governorship and you can see right away that they do. So thank you, Indiana Citizen. Next up is Jump Laundry. You can visit them at jumplaundry.com. They have home pickup. They do your dry cleaning, wash and fold with, I might add, no judgments, and next day service. So if you're in a crunch for time, you don't want to do your own laundry, get a hold of Jump Laundry at jumplaundry.com or at 317-740-5011, and they will take care of all of your laundry needs.
It's the Brickyard 400, presented by PPG.
This is such a prestigious place and such hallowed ground.
This 3-day NASCAR Crown Jewel event features the NASCAR Xfinity Series Pennzoil 250.
This is the Brickyard. This is Indianapolis. This is the coolest racetrack in the world.
Don't miss the stars of NASCAR. Drive for a chance to kiss the bricks. Brickyard weekend tickets available now at IMS.com.
Welcome back to the Snyder Report. I'm your host, Gary Snyder. She is State Representative Carrie Hamilton. Carrie, I should have this if I were a good podcast host. What district is that?
87.
Okay.
North side of Indianapolis, northeast.
All right, before we went to break, you were getting ready to talk about kitchen table issues and how this is going to affect Hoosiers. The big bad bill combined with what's happened at the state level, you know, it's a bad time to be middle class or poor in Indiana.
Absolutely. So another big piece of this is utility bills and energy in particular. So any Hoosier knows, I know, you know, that utility bills have gone up a lot the last several years.
A lot.
And one of the kind of bright lights on the horizon was the development of cheap, clean energy across our state. And with this big bad bill, that's being kneecapped. And we see that both directly because we're a manufacturing state, it's going to have a major negative impact because we are building right now EV battery plants in several of our cities, including Kokomo and other areas.
Yep.
And those jobs are now in question. Some of those jobs for sure are in question. Will all of those plants open up and create those thousands of high quality family supporting jobs? There's also a solar panel facility that's being built, massive facility that's being built down in River Ridge in southern Indiana. And there's now a question if they'll be able to open their doors, Gary. And this is, again, hundreds, if not thousands of jobs just at that facility to build solar panels right here in Indiana. and sell them across the continent. So that impact just to good jobs in our state, plus the fact that we're now going to be more reliant on more expensive, dirty energy, right?
Well,
And
Todd
that's just,
Rokita was, if you saw the SnydeReport, I think it was today, Todd Rokita standing there with the coal industry saying, we need more coal. Like we don't breathe. And Indiana already has some of the dirtiest air in the nation.
we absolutely do. And that what that means for Hoosiers is more trips to the ER for asthma attacks, more heart attacks. I mean, bad air quality is a major health concern. In Indiana, Hoosiers are suffering because of that poor air quality. And when you see a politician standing next to someone from the coal industry, that's a politician standing next to a major campaign donor.
Oh, yeah.
That's not about Hoosier homegrown energy. That's about campaign donations for a very dirty, very expensive energy source. It's very expensive.
I saw CNBC today. It was actually in the SnydeReport today, where Indiana now ranks third nationally in third worst in quality of life issues.
That's right. That's right. So we're going in the wrong direction when it comes to quality of life. And when we talk about this big bill, another key point to remember, it's pretty stunning. Indiana is third most reliant on federal funds of all the states.
Mm-hmm.
Next, I think it's Mississippi, Louisiana, and then Indiana.
Good company.
Yeah, right. I mean, no, I don't want to knock on those states, but they're not known for a great quality of life and, high standard of living.
Right.
And we're right alongside them when it comes to our dependence on the federal government. And we're about to get cut hard when it comes to support from the federal government. Now, there's another piece, and that's education funding. So now, Gary, this isn't directly in the big bad bill, but as this bill's been going through the last few weeks and past just before the 4th of July,
Mm-hmm.
we've also seen some cuts, a couple of different big cuts to federal support for education that are going to hit Indiana particularly hard. And, we can tie it both to the education system, which is critically important, and also to working families, because some of that support was for before and after care for kiddos. And also, actually, in the big bad bill, we had food assistance. We haven't talked about that yet. 66% of that goes to families with kiddos. So that's paying for their lunch at school, paying for their summer lunches. Indiana's food banks are scared to death. They're not going to be able to handle the surge of demand from working families, low-income working families. It's going to be a pretty scary time for a lot more folks than we already have, scraping to get by in Indiana today. And it makes me angry. It doesn't have to be this way.
When we look at priorities, and I think this should tell everyone where the priorities are with the big, bad, ugly bill and Jim Banks and Todd Young, and you can go down the line, Victoria Spartz, Aaron Hutchin, whatever it is. Doesn't matter. Marlon Stutz.
Okay.
Marlon Shreve. And I know I'm forgetting one. But they all voted for this bill. And what really, I guess, pissed me off about it is that as people are sitting there trying to figure out at the kitchen table, trying to figure out where their money is going to go with the pittance that they're getting from this tax cut and these tax cuts, the no tax on tips, you're not going to see that in your paycheck. It's a deduction.
Yeah.
It
ends. It ends in a couple of years.
They end in 2028.
Another trick of this bill.
All these tax cuts for people like myself or you or anyone that's probably listening, they end in 2028. Whereas Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos, their tax cuts go on forever now.
That's right. That's right.
So, where are the priorities? They like to talk about that poor people or middle-class families are gaming the system.
Oh, it makes me mad.
And I can tell you, Jeff Bezos pays probably no income tax or very little. Same with Elon Musk.
That's right.
And these people get more government handouts in 1 year than a person on food stamps getting $800 a month probably does in her lifetime, yet we're pissed off at the people getting food stamps or Medicaid.
That's right. When the person who works at Walmart and is eligible for Medicaid because they make such little money are still spending a higher percentage of their income on taxes than Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk.
And the thing about it, if they move to Indiana, they're going to get free vouchers for their kids.
That's right.
You
Don't
told
get
me
me
that.
started, Gary. They're going to get to go to their private schools on the public dime when we're still siphoning money away from public schools. That's right.
Anything else we need to know about this big, ugly bill that we can cover in a few minutes?
Well, I'm glad you just kind of hit on the big picture here about priorities, right? This isn't about American values. Americans pride people having a chance at a good life when they work hard. And that's just not where we are in our country today. And I think about, one of the talking points from Republicans right now is that these big tax cuts are going to spur economic activity. Well, the reality is when we had the strongest middle class back in the 50s and 60s, the tax structure was such that corporations were taxed a lot after a certain amount of out of its profit. And because that tax rate was high, they decided instead of paying those high taxes, they invested in better wages, in innovation, in quality of life for their employees. They invested in their communities. The Lilly Foundation here in Indianapolis, one of the largest philanthropic entities in our state, was created during that time, that tax structure time, because they wanted to invest in community instead of paying high taxes after they made a whole lot of money. And instead, now we see the billionaires just pocketing more of the billions, and that hurts the entire country.
The gap between rich and poor right now is the highest it's ever been.
It's so embarrassing and harmful. As an American, I'm embarrassed. As a policymaker, I'm embarrassed. I'm sad, and we've got to change the story. We've got to change the story for Americans.
Anything else you want to cover before we let you run tonight?
Well, I just hope that, anyone who's listening and cares about these issues is really fired up to engage in 2026 during the election cycle. I'm going to do a little pitch for House Democrats. We're working hard to flip some seats and break the supermajority and start to really build back. And that's where I get my energy right now. When I can't change things that are happening on Capitol Hill or with the supermajority, I'm fired up to make change happen at the election.
How do we do that? Because they've had a supermajority, and we've had this almost same conversation, maybe not necessarily with you, but with other people year after year after year, and we still keep getting the same results. So how do we change that next year? Is it what's happening nationally? Is it what's happening at the state level? Is it a combination?
I think it's more state and local. Well, certainly it's all of the above, but I would say get involved in your local county party. And if you're in an area that doesn't have much activity at the county party, start to change that. Right? Your neighbor county Democratic Party will help you grow and evolve if your county needs that help. Whatever level your county party is at, help them grow, knock on doors, build a base of volunteers and folks who are going to show up and help us make this change happen.
Thank you, Carrie.
Thanks, Gary.
I'm Gary Snyder. She is not. She is State Representative Carrie Hamilton. This is the Snyde Report, and we are out.